All right, because we're pressed for time, we'll just go over our conversations for this morning, starting with the grid collapse in Nigeria. The president of Nigeria Consumer Protection Network, Kunle Olubiyo, said the recurrence of national grid collapses which leave the nation in darkness typifies the inadequacies of the transmission company of Nigeria. Disclosed this while reacting to the incessant grid collapse that the country has witnessed over the couple of months now, most especially in the year 2024. Now, the unstable power supply and continuous collapse of the grid has resulted in huge economic losses, while businesses have had to pay more to run operations amidst high price of alternative power sources. Kunle Olubiyo, President, Nigeria Consumer Protection Network, joins me. I'm on the show to further unpack this. Thank you so much, Mr. Olubiyo, for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Good day.
All right, so first, let's understand what you consider as the real reasons for the grid collapse in the country.
Thank you very much. Grid collapse, as defined technically or by in engineering terms, is a situation where you have tripod, three leg of the national grid. You have the generation, you have the transmission. Generation generates electricity from different energy mix. It could be hydro, it could be thermal, that's gas plant, and it could be other grid source electricity. So from generation, you have transmission that evacuates, like the go-between. You have a truck that moves products from the point of production to the market. That's transmission, where you have towers in the different parts of the country. At the downstream, you have the distribution. This tripod is always expected to be at equilibrium. That means when generation generates, transmission must be able to pick the same level of load and distribution distributing it. So anytime there's a distortion in the level of equilibrium of this three tripod or three leg of cascading of electricity, then you have system instability that may result in system disturbances, system instability, or what has come to be known as system grid collapses. That's the operational end of it. And the grid is always expected at all times to be at a specified threshold of frequency. There are other factors that will account for the causes of grid collapses, as commonly described in this part of the world. Each transmission line in a grid system is expected to have what we call the right of way, ROW. Right of way defines the passage or the channel that's usually created under the grid. So when there are vegetation encroachment of the grid, it could lead to transient fault. It can equally result in grid collapse. And at times, there are human elements like vandalization, explosives could be planted under the grid, or if there's an erosion encroachment, apart from vegetation encroachment, and there's a loss of load on the grid, because the grid is monolithic, is one unit of different towers put together. That will equally result in the system collapses. One major factor that I don't want to forget is when there's a load distortion, like I said, or power swing, the system or the grid is designed with mechanisms that are supposed to come as protection for different layers of the grid, from upstream to downstream. Where the equipment becomes obsolete or they become inoperative, their failure to be operative will equally result in system grid collapses.
Okay, so with all you said, Kunle, it seems as though there's a whole lot that needs to be done in terms of maintenance, looking at the power infrastructure. But then I know that under the Buhari administration, over $4 billion was actually secured in terms of loan to actually facilitate the improvement of power generation and distribution in the country. But then when we have those kind of funds come in, but we don't see that trickling effect in terms of dealing with most of these issues that you have mentioned around infrastructure. What does that tell you about the maintenance culture and the focus of government looking at the power sector?
Yeah, there are two types of grid collapses, like I've said. There's grid that is spelled GRID, that is the electricity grid. And there's grid that is spelled as GREED. Grid is corruption. So corruption, institutional capture of TCN by the executive and legislative arm of government who equally result in grid collapses. What do I mean by grid? Grid, GREED. Corruption and human element. If money is taken as loan from multilateral finance institutions like World Bank, IMF, and what have you, if the money is not properly utilized, like you can quote me or you can have it for free, that the Economic and Financial Crime Commission is presently doing a good job. Without apology, you can quote me. I repeat myself, like up 10 times, you can quote me that as we speak now, will advise the Economic and Financial Crime Commission to tidy up what the ongoing investigation of TCN. If you have what we call emergency procurement and money meant for maintenance of the grid, if they are not properly or judiciously utilized and divert such money for procurement of SUV, miscellaneous emergency procurement projects that does not even add to network improvement, that will lead to the second phase of grid collapse, which is corruption. Grid, as in the grid element. Besides that, again, we've continued to pay lip services to maintenance of grid. For example, sometimes in 2020, during the Obasanjo administration, we decided to do some level of improvement in terms of investment in the network, and we'll have the Ugwaji Makurdi line, one of the lines that led to about 10 to 15 days of power outage to the northern corridor. I recall that in my interaction and privilege of information, the former MD of Nigeria Electricity Management Service Agency, Engineer Peter Iweso, stood his ground that is not going to issue the prerequisite NEPSA certificate for that line. That's what we call the sleeve of the conductor, where the two cable is supposed to, like a major line of ductile pipe, you know ductile iron pipe, which you use in carrying water, that's water line. There are places where it's supposed to be keyed. The places where the two conductors are supposed to be linked together, the sleeve was not properly aligned by the conductor. And so just a simple encroachment by the grid, by vegetation, when trees grow under the vegetation and comes against them, it was able to pull apart the conductor. And that was what happened. And sadly, like we said, we are running a 19th century network in the 21st century. All the trees, all the plantations that are competing for right of ways of the transmission grid, when last did we do mechanized vegetation control? The local parlance, we call it caterpillar, where you use truck or machineries instead of using what we call the cutlasses in local parlance to clear the right of ways. Right of ways of transmission, there are places that you are not supposed to erect any structure. There's places that from a very far distance, you should be able to have a clear line of sight. Most of our vegetation around Nigeria, they have a lot of invasion of encroachment of the vegetation, competing with the towers. And once a leaf touches the conductor that is in potential or is in circuit, it's generating power at that particular time, the leaf will burn, and you will not know the direct.
Hello, Kunle, can you hear me? Well, I guess we just lost a connection with Kunle Olubiyo right there. He's the Nigeria Consumer Protection Network president. He has been actually sharing with us all the issues as regards what is actually causing the epileptic power supply and the grid collapse that we've seen in the country for a couple of months now. I must tell you, in this year alone, we've had 10 grid collapse situations in the country. Now, Kunle, I'm told that you're back online with us, and you've actually, itemized a couple of the challenges that we have with our infrastructure in the power sector. But then one critical aspect that you mentioned had to do with investments. Now, there have been inadequate investments in the power sector, with the Minister of Power saying funds are needed to scale up its operations and improve on power generating facilities. But then how will this sector attract investments with its constant grid collapse, epileptic supply, moribund facilities that you said was actually installed a couple of decades ago? How do you think investors will be willing to put their money into a sector when the facility is obsolete?
Well, sorry for the interruption, but the system is designed for an incoming call when a Zoom network like this is interrupted. So my apology for that. Well, I was trying to just do a wrap up on laying the background.
Let's because we don't have enough time, so we have actually understood what you meant when you look at perennial or the foundational problems in the sector. We now want to move forward and look at investment opportunities if Nigeria can actually attract investments.
Like I've said earlier, the problem is not issue of investment. The problem is mismanagement of funds. And like I've said, not having the right things in place. And so moving forward, talking about the solution now, one would advise that every business, public sector driven model is usually seen as a cash cow, where you have ops that are involved in profiteering and rent seeking. So the way forward for federal government is not to put in further money, because it's been seen by those who have said without apology, the National Assembly, without apology, I said, the executive arm of government, they put a lot of pressure on the TCM management to continue to maintain their office or remain in office. So the way forward is for federal government to privatize the sector so that there will be no cash cow. The original intention of privatization is that the three arms of government of the grid value chain will privatize generation, transmission, and we cannot continue to keep what you call the evacuation means, the transmission architecture in public sector model. Every budget that comes, 70% of it is usually taken out as cashing out. So the best way for federal government, like we are doing in the energy, oil and gas sector, is to privatize completely the transmission leg or subsector of the grid.
Kunle, you are talking about privatization. In one of the reports that we tracked last month, you equally said that TCN's trademark in the past years is paying lip service to the challenges, facing the grid. And you equally accused TCN of lack of sincerity in dealing with the problems as regards grid collapse. You equally called for the sack. You called for the sack of the management. So let's have an understanding.
What we are saying is that public sector business model is about sharing the money.
Okay.
It's not about KPI. It's not about efficiency. It is not about service delivery. So even when you put $100 billion US or $1 trillion US, there are ops or sharks readily standing by to swallow the money in what we call the misapplication appropriation of funds. So as we speak to you now, there's a lot of indebtedness in the sector. The debt obligation to the GENCOs is about 2.5 trillion naira. The shortfall of the tariff is about 3 trillion naira. And the budget for this year, even as grossly inadequate as it is 400 billion. And even when that is released, naira, and even when that is released, 70% of it will go into miscellaneous expenses and miscellaneous emergency procurement. So what we are saying with the public sector business model that we have is rife with corruption. And so the best way to go to achieve efficiency, when you bring in, you've seen what has happened in the television, radio, and print media, where the Babangida administration and the subsequent administration gave licenses to the what you have now is as a result of private sector business model. So the present market structure, the present what we call public sector business model. The summary of it is that we, just like we are removing subsidy, we cannot afford to run this type of public sector business model. For the next 100 years, we'll continue to move in circles without solution. So
okay,
that is just the best way forward. Investors will restructure the market, they will redefine the business model, and they will make the market to be wholly and more competitive. We can do a debt buyback.
Okay, so I understand. So let's look at this other side. All right, Kunle, let's look at this other side now. We've seen a hike in electricity tariff in April, rising to about 240%, which is actually worse than the hardship of Nigerians, facing what Nigerians are actually facing right now. Now, DISCO's declared improved revenues between June and October. Still, the perennial deplorable power supply persists. Would you call for a reversal on tariff pending the time the Nigerian government gets it right with the kind of management that can make the power sector more formidable and would provide services that are actually needed to drive economic growth in the country?
Well, tariff and issue of metering, there are issues that have continued to give us as concern as end user customer. You recall that by 2012 or 2013, the tariff rate was about 11 naira 35 kobo, and between 2013 to date, as we speak now, the tariff rate is about between.
Hello, Kunle. Well, I guess that's another internet glitch on Kunle's part right there. Let's see if we can still bring him back on to have his wrap on this particular conversation. We're looking at the several issues that have plagued the power sector in terms of power generation and distribution, even as we've seen a collapse in the grid of about 10 times now this year. And he has talked about corruption in the sector as one of the issues affecting the growth, as we should have seen. Kunle, I want to believe that you're back. So you were talking about the issue around tariff. Yes, you were talking about the issue around tariff and what needs to be done if there could be a reversal.
Yeah, while we continue to witness increase in tariff, while we continue to witness increase in tariff by over 500% from 11 naira to 240 naira, we have not had service reflectivity, correspondent improvement in services. And the reason why we have this is NEC is an executive arm of government, whether it is independent regulatory institution or what have you. And so NEC, TCN, and every other institution on the supply side of the value chain have been inhibited by the fact that they are all on the public sector business model. So moving forward, tariff is not bad, whether increase upward or what have you. But what is most important to us is that for us to have commensurate level of efficient service delivery. And if you look at the tariff component, there are a lot of gold plating, over bloated cost input. And so we're advising that the sector, like I've said before, if it is properly structured and the market is restructured, and maybe you list the structure on the stock of the floor of Nigerian Stock Exchange, then we might get a lot of improvement with service. Service is very important to us as end user customer. As I even speak to you from here, I believe there's another grid collapse now, because you can see that my environment is a bit without the kind of brightness we're enjoying. So tariff modeling needs to be revisited if we must properly get it right. 2013, we celebrated 5,600 megawatts. And in 2024, we've not been able to achieve 6,000 megawatts. We've not been able to add additional 400 megawatts to the national quantum of generation capacity. So it's a whole lot of inefficiency thrown at us.
All right, Kunle, thank you so much. I guess that's how much we can actually take on this particular discussion. We go on a break right now. We'll be back in a bit.